On the left, it's Alexander Vore. Kano, first place after the Swiss, taking on Jacob Shaker. On Briar, Warden of Thorns, our 8th seed, trying to determine who will be the first Flesh and Blood Pro Tour champion.
Speaking of shaking, Brian, I've actually got a nervous energy going through me. This is our first top 8 match of a Pro Tour ever. Love seeing the good sportsmanship between the players. A nice little fist bump.
Love it.
And as you see, we got some Arcane Barrier here over the Jacob Shaker side. That's going to be the 2 most important cards, I think, in this game, is that Crown of Dichotomy and that Quexing Villain.
Yeah, of course, we talked about Arcanite Skullcap, but you're going to go Crown of Dichotomy. You just need the consistency, and those competing for the same slot, it is going to be Crown of Dichotomy every time. So only AB2 available for Jacob, as expected. Potion of Deja Vu going to be the play from Alexander to lead things off.
Yep. Nothing really happening turn 1 other than some setup, which is something you said is kind of important.
Alexander likes that. I mean, just getting that potion out there, we've seen Alexander use Potion of Deja Vu to huge effect. Your damage output can go through the roof when you're able to get into your pitch zone and line up the top of your deck.
Right, this looks like a Sonata Arcanus is going to hit. A Lightning Surge is going to deal a damage over to Alexander Vore, so that damage starting up already. This is a nice free attack here from Jacob as well. A nice little 4 for 0, or if he wants to Arsenal this up and play it next turn, he can even give it go again.
Yeah, and that's going to be very important for Jacob when you're trying to produce a lot of damage. You have to get wide. So love to see that go again attack from Jacob. We'll see how he wants to deploy it on this turn and how quickly that damage is going to come.
Now, if you're Jacob in this match and you are playing from this side, for the first couple turns, are you just trying to maximize output of damage as much as possible and maybe not worry about getting Arcane shot down so much, and you're more worried about, like, say, turns 3 and 4 once the Tunic's charged up?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Tannen, there's no good answer. You want to do both, but you can't. You have to pick a lane. A lot of your choices in Flesh and Blood are always going to be dictated by what you draw. If you have the capacity to go ahead and push that early damage to get wide, you're going to try and do it. It's just a question of whether or not you can. And I actually want to point out Coax Commotion, a really nice tool here in this matchup, because you go ahead and make those quicken tokens for everyone. Kano's not going to take advantage of that, but you as the Briar certainly can. So you are going to see a block lined up from Alexander Vore here.
Yeah, hopefully he's going to cause a commotion here in this match for Jacob here if he gets this upset with the 8 versus the 1. It does look like he's going to arsenal up a card here and not get any damage to this turn. I wonder if it's that Lightning Surge. He's just trying to set up for one huge turn, maybe looking for a Channel Mount Heroic. You know, play that on his turn, have this free attack from the arsenal.
Yeah, a pretty mild turn from Jacob, honestly.
Sure.
Just to coax a commotion, no real follow-up. Here comes the first salvo from Alexander Vore. It is going to be a Sonic Boom juiced up by that Crucible for a arcane damage headed the way of Jacob Shaker. And this is Jacob's first chance to go ahead and deploy some of that Arcane Barrier. It looks like he does have a blue Weave Earth at the ready. Going to go ahead, pitch that, pump 2 Arcane Barrier, and Sonic Boom for 2 is the order of business here. Alexander takes a look, and it looks like it's going to be a blank. So we talked earlier about how important it is to get value from those Sonic Booms. You never, ever want those to whiff. There's the first whiff in the matchup. That's the type of thing that could allow Briar to hop into this game and maybe steal a W.
That's a big win for Jacob there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, we talked about his turn was a little bit slower, and this is maybe why. Maybe he had some blues in his hand. He kind of wanted to make sure, hey, I want to keep my life total as high as possible going into this turn. So maybe you're not going to be seeing him playing these 4-card hands every turn. You're going to see 2, maybe 3 really impactful cards, leaving back one of those cards to make sure that he has at least 2 resources at the ready to activate that Arcane Barrier at least once during those turns.
Yeah, so as are all things in Flesh and Blood. Delicate balancing act. Here we see Captain's Call. An unusual mode, I would say, Tan. It looks like it's going to go ahead and give this Lightning Surge +2. You expect Captain's Call to contribute to those really go-wide turns. But, of course, Lightning Surge already has go again as it was played from the arsenal. So just looking to push a little damage. And when you're racing, that's important.
Absolutely. Usually what they do is Captain's Call is the start of a big turn, right? Give this attack go again. Give my Snatch go again. So if it hits, I get to draw a card, keep going, go further down the line. But we've already got that set up. So we're going to go ahead and move this. I like that Jacob still makes the embodiment of Earth Token, even though it's completely irrelevant.
Look, you can't let your mechanics slip. It's important to stay on top of things. You're going to get a 2 and 2 here from Rosetta Thorn, a little bit of arcane damage, a little bit of regular damage, and Alexander Vore's life total is going to continue to fall here. The race is on.
He's going to get through 10 damage this turn, so that's a really good one here for Jacob. Alexander down to 19. That's not a typo, just for everybody at home. If you're not used to playing against Kano, any of these wizards, they start at 30.
They got to have some weakness, right, Tannen? There's got to be something wrong with what they could do. Otherwise, they would be a truly fearsome hero. Not that they aren't already. And speaking of fearsome, here's a really nice play from Alexander Vore. Going to go ahead and use Feyendel Spring Tunic to play Toma Feyendel from Arsenal. This means going to go ahead, draw 2 cards, but the most important thing here, a gain of 6 life. That is massive, Tannen.
That's almost an entire turn for most of Jacob's outputs. We saw 10 last turn. We were really happy about that. He just got 60% of that back.
Huge, huge turn for Alexander. That nothing's happening in the game, right? There's no damage being put out by Alexander. I promise you that's about as good of a turn as you can put together, though.
I may have seen another tome in his hand here as well.
Interesting. Going to need to find an action point. Should he play that one? Already used his action point for the turn to deploy the first tome. So maybe not on this turn, but if you want to do it on the next turn, that sounds real good.
Yeah, so this is the kind of hand, you set up these Tome of Feyendel turns that he could play a little bit of a longer game if he wants. Maybe if he doesn't do a whole lot here on his own turn, he could arsenal the Tome of Feyendel, maybe throw one burn spell at Jacob, do something maybe during Jacob's turn, but then he can set up to do kind of the same thing next turn, right? Start my turn off, draw 2 cards, gain 4 to 6 life, kind of negate Jacob's almost entire turn here, and then he's just in a good spot again because then it gives him time to kind of charge up this Spring Tunic, maybe find an energy potion if that's in his deck, get some more resources so he can really have one of those big explosive turns. But we see Alexander taking time here. What he's counting is he's counting resources. He's trying to figure out how many activations can I do during, I'm sorry, not just Jacob's turn, our turn here later. So Alexander, if I'm Jacob and I'm sitting in the seat, I'm starting to squirm a little bit.
Understandable. It looks like Alexander's hand very red rich, I would say. A lot of red pitch, and that could slow things down a little bit. We're seeing a lot of cards lined up here for Alexander. Let's see exactly what they're being deployed to. Like we mentioned, action point already used on Alexander's turn, but that's not so much of a limitation for Kano. And maybe you just want to start firing off a big salvo here. I also see Blazing Ether in hand as well. So you could probably put together a pretty solid turn here if you have the resources. Gaze the Ages looks available to make some blues. I think you are right on that second copy of Tome of Feyendel. So Alexander just very carefully thinking about how he wants to proceed to the next turn. You love to have perfect setup, but you also love to get the most out of what you're holding. And we are going to see a sizable pitch here. Looks like a Kano activation is going to be the order of business. And 1 left floating. Additional Kano activation, possibly. Yeah, more Kano activation. So all of these Kano activations are going to happen at the same time. And now it's time for that Potion of Deja Vu to be deployed. This is going to be a big burst of damage from Alexander. He has lined up these Kano activations perfectly and is going to choose exactly what they hit right now. And if you're over in Jacob's seat, you got to be a little afraid. There's going to be some serious damage output. I believe I see an Ether Flare available. 2 Ether Flares available. Ether Flare, of course, going to amplify damage for the rest of the turn. Tannen, I'm not a math guy. Not going to do any math right now. I'm concerned for Jacob's life. Even at 38, there's going to be some serious damage output coming on this turn.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to be scared if you're Jacob. This Potion of Deja Vu is going to allow Alexander to put all those cards from his pitch zone on top of his deck in any order. I think that's what took so long this turn. He's like, okay, not only do I have to figure out how many resources I have, what order I want the cards in, but how do I pitch correctly? Because he had to underpitch, overpitch, overpitch, get the things into the pitch zone. Now he's going to rearrange the order, and Jacob's at 38, but I guarantee you that number is going to be a lot lower very soon.
I would expect so. We're going to see, again, 3 Kano activations are on the stack right now. That means 3 times the top of the library will be revealed. That card will be banished, and Alexander will have access to that as an instant for the rest of the turn.
I'm not even going to begin to think that I could figure this one out from sitting over here. Alex has all the information. It's taken him a while to get it all set up and ready and going. These are some of the most complicated turns in all of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, critically, Potion of Deja Vu does not allow opponents to see the order of the cards as they're stacked. So Jacob not going to know exactly what Alexander is up to. You're going to have a pretty good idea what's going on. You know the cards that are going to be hit with that Kano ability, but not the exact plan. And maybe Alexander is thinking, is there some way I can mess with Jacob's Arcane Barrier timing? Can I get him to make a mistake? That's a lot of what Kano wants to ask. Can I find a way to make my opponent make a mistake? Step 1 here, though, we're going to go ahead, hit that Tome and hit an Ether Flare with the second activation, and then we're going to go ahead and hit Tome of Feyendel. So 4 new cards are going to come to hand for Alexander should he choose. Step 1, Tome of Feyendel. That's going to put 2 in hand.
That's also going to gain him 3 life here. It's going to move up to 28 here as well.
Yep. Now we have those Ether Flares, those Tome of Aetherwind set aside. That means it's going to be time for Alexander to go ahead, use those new cards on whatever he chooses. Metacarpus Node activations, Crucible of Aetherweave activations. All those things can amplify the damage of that Aether Flare. It looks like instead, though, it's going to be another Kano activation here, and it's going to reveal the Blazing Ether. And good lord, has this damage output just dramatically increased with the addition of that card to the Banish Zone.
Let's see what Alexander has in store for us. This has been one of the more complicated turns I've ever seen. This is one of the first times I've ever got to cast a turn where the Deja Vu potion actually gets used. And this is one of the ones that, a lot of us talked about how much these items were going to impact Classic Constructed coming out of Everfest. And this is the one that I kept hearing people talk about. Potion of Deja Vu has some fringe play and a couple things, but if Kano ever got good, this is one of those cards that can really, really ramp up a Kano deck.
Oh yeah, this is exactly its best application. And speaking of applications, we talked about Tome of the Ether when typically you see this drawing 2 cards. I think Alexander just chose the other mode on Tome, which says the next card you play this turn with an effect that deals arcane damage instead deals that much arcane damage +1, and now it's time for Ether Flare, going to be pumped up by that Crucible, by that Tome, and 6 damage coming from Aether Flare. And you know what Aether Flare does. The next card you play this turn with an effect that deals arcane damage deals that much +X. So if Alexander has a strong follow-up here, the damage is going to go through the roof. And we know that Blazing Aether is at the ready, going to be deployed now. So what that's going to do, it's going to combine with that previous 4 damage, make an additional 4 damage, 8 damage headed the way of Jacob. And I think this turn is sort of coming to a conclusion right now. I think Alexander has gotten enough out of it. And maybe the potential was there for even more fireworks should the right pieces come up. Let's see what happens with the rest of the turn if Alexander has a follow-up to this Blazing Ether.
Yeah, Jacob went ahead and pitched a blue, prevented 2 from the Aether Flare. He's going to prevent 1 from the Blazing as well.
Yep. And so that means 7 of that damage is going to come through.
So it looks like we're at 11 total right now.
Yep.
So far. There could be more.
There could be more. I think this may be it from Alexander. I mean, we talked about the potential to just blow Jacob up. Obviously, that has not happened, but I want to talk about what has happened on this turn. A lot of damage pushed. Not a lot of resources expended. We still have our Talismanic Lens at the ready. We still have our Metacarpus Nodes at the ready. We still have Stormstriders at the ready. So, a lot of fireworks ultimately didn't lead to those type of Kano turns we've seen throughout this tournament where the opponent's just dead, but did a lot of work and got some work done on Jacob's life total. 27, that's a world different from 40, and that's the range where when Alexander finds, an attack that threatens lethal, which, by the way, we're very far from. Alexander, very healthy 25 life, but when things get dire, all those resources still available for Alexander, and I think what he's trying to do is going to extend this game, again, as long as possible, get that Tunics charged up, get everything set and rolling, and then try and find that final salvo to go ahead and punch his ticket to the semifinal. Let's see if Jacob has anything to say about it. Step 1, Ravenous Rabble coming through for 4.
Yep, it's going to reveal a red snatch off the top of the library here, so it's going to make the 5 power go down to 4. It's got Go Again inherently, so this is just the start of Jacob's turn. Let's see what he's got behind this. He's got that Spring Tunic at the ready. That's a resource, though, that he might want to leave floating for the next turn or two, as well as just another way to stop some Arcane Barrier. Let's see, this is a Swarming Gloomveil.
Yeah, another attack with Go Again, keeping that chain going.
I was about to say, this will have Go Again because there have been, something has been created this turn.
Yeah,
an aura has been created, yeah.
Due to the Briar ability, going to go ahead. Not very useful in regards to preventing any damage from the Kano, but very useful in terms of turning on that Swarming Gloomveil.
I think I see an Aether Wildfire in Alexander's hand. He's taking a little time here, and this is something I see a lot of Kano players do. No matter if they're going to do it or not, every time you do something, like, all right, let me think for a moment. Just so that way you're not sure of when they're actually going to strike.
A lot of thinking to be done, for sure, on the part of Kano, and every moment is an opportunity for a Kano player. You can decide, this is when I need to do something. Only 3 damage coming through from this Swarming Gloomveil, so Alexander with some options here. No real threat yet.
That last turn was so wild from both perspectives, right? Like Alexander has to think, hey, this is a pretty good win for me. I got a ton of damage through, but I still retained all of my equipment. Like you said, all that stuff's still there. But if you're on Jacob's side, you're like, I only took 11, right? We got the Potion of Deja Vu off the board. We got the Tunic triggers off the board as well. So that's a win, I think, in both players' minds.
I agree. And you look at that Ether Wildfire being committed to defense here for Alexander, meaning it's not the time for this card yet. Obviously, one of the most explosive things in this Kano deck, but it's got its moments. You got to pick your spots. Right now, it's moment. Play a little defense on that Swarming Gloomveil. Protect the life total. Here comes Snatch, although Jacob already has a card in hand, so maybe this is one where Alexander isn't super afraid of that on-hit. It looks like Snapdragon Scaler is going to be activated here. Give that Snatch go again.
So it looks like the Snatch was not blocked. In response, we're going to go ahead and give it go again. It's going to get another Snatch off the top of the deck. So this is kind of just like a freebie for Jacob. He's getting a free roll into another Snatch. It's going to deal more damage. Oh, well, I spoke too soon.
Yeah, how about a Revel in Runeblood? That's going to push a little damage here. And Rosetta Thorn going to go ahead and push Arcane damage along with those Rune Chant tokens. So 4, 2, and 2 headed the way of Alexander Vore, and what looked like a very comfortable life total heading into this turn, starting to get less comfortable here.
We're getting close to getting to single digits.
It's a scary place to be for the Kano player, but they live on this edge. They're used to being in that scenario.
And when you see them block with Aether Wildfire in the middle of a turn like this, is that kind of like your green light? Are you supposed to just go when you see that and start expending almost everything from your hand?
I wouldn't say it's a pure green light. It's a good sign, though, that they're probably
it's yellow.
Not going to try and kill you on this turn. That Aether Wildfire, you understand why Alexander wants to block with it. It's best revealed to a Kano activation. There is no Ragamuffin's Hat in Alexander build. That's a point of differentiation between the Kanos and our top 8. We've seen Sasha mostly rely on Ragamuffin's Hat thus far. Alexander instead playing that Talismanic Lens, so it's not like he can just reset the Aether Wildfire. Just going to go ahead, find a Kano activation here. It looks like Reverberate was the hit off the top. And maybe another spell coming with that Reverberate. Assumption is Jacob without a lot of resources left to commit to Arcane Barrier. 2 cards in hand, though.
An Energy Potion make its way to the pitch zone.
Yeah,
maybe not having enough time to get that set up.
Yeah, Crucible of Aetherweave going to go ahead and contribute to that Reverberate, trying to push it to 4 arcane damage. Of course, that allows you to go ahead and play a card with value less as an instant. It looks like only 2 going to make its way through. There was a blue in Jacob's hand, pitching Tome of Harvest to go ahead and find some Arcane Barrier.
Still got that 1 resource floating as well.
Yeah, that 2 came through, though. It allowed Alexander to go ahead and employ Potion of Deja Vu, and we saw the impact of Potion of Deja Vu on that last turn. Alexander, again, trying to get those pieces at the ready. Wants to get that Tunic ready to go. Wants to get those potions out there. And once that happens, he'll be ready for that salvo from Jacob. Start's going to be a Ravenous Rabble here, revealing Channel Mount Heroic. And if you see that in your Alexander, you know your clock is short. You will not be able to survive through that Channel Mount Heroic turn. You're getting ready to start going for it. And step 1, you're going to go ahead and take this 4 damage. The question is, are we going on this turn? Are we going on a future turn? It all depends what Jacob can produce here in terms of aggression.
Looks like Alexander's going to take that down to 9, down to single digits. This life total getting a little precarious. Maybe a little sweat on the brow of our Kano player here in this top 8. Got to be a little bit worried. Here's that Snatch that we knew about from last turn as well. It's going to be attacking for 4 with an on-hit of drawing a card. It's going to get that Channel Mount Heroic that's on top of the deck. No extra action point, though, here.
No go again. Critically so. And I think that means Alexander can probably breathe a sigh of relief here. Look for maybe a little bit more chip damage on his turn, should he want to. And then next turn will be the final turn. That is when Alexander will finally commit, go for it, and possibly punch a ticket to the top 4 of the first Pro Tour. Not a foregone conclusion, though. Still plenty of options here from Jacob. And I love this. Blocking with the Tunic now knows the game is not going to extend to the point where that Tunic is going to be relevant again. Just finding a clean block here, and maybe that'll buy a full extra turn. If it does, you've gotten more than your money's worth for that Tunic.
Yeah, every life point's going to really matter here with that Channel Mount Heroic that we just saw make its way from the top of Jacob's deck into his hand. That card is super scary. Speaking of scary, we got an Aetherweave activation here. Yeah,
going to go ahead and pump up that Scalding Rain again, just pushing a little damage through. These are, again, the generic attacks of the Kano deck. These are just your little salvos you're throwing your opponent's way. It looks like an Earthler Surge Blue going to be pitched again, preventing 2 of that Arcane. So 3 Arcane heading the way of Jacob Shake. But there was a snapback here, adding additional 3 Arcane damage the way of Jacob. And this is, If I'm Jacob, I do not love my life total right now, knowing that this is the turn that Alexander Vore is going to go ahead, fire off all the fireworks in the deck. Are you safe? Is that 22 life going to be enough? It's going to fall down to 20 ultimately from the snapback.
Yeah, precarious life total for Jacob as well. Both these players kind of getting a little bit worried in their seats. You got to be a little scared with their life totals where they're at.
You know
Alexander
what, though?
Vore down to a single digit.
I want to point out, Tannen, the top of the deck here was not really set up for Alexander. There was no Ether Spindle, no real scrying going on. Of course, Talismanic Lens still available. That'll allow him to set up the top of the deck. And a pretty critical draw there from Alexander drew the Eye of Ophidia. And that means on that Kano activation, when he pitches, he's going to be able to scry 2 and set up exactly what he needs off the top of the deck. So we're expecting fireworks here from Jacob, but is Alexander going to be up to the task? And here comes the first attack. This is for 7.
This is for 7. You know what? I think this is it. I think this is the turn where they have to go.
100%.
Jacob is going to present lethal here. Alexander has a card in his hand that doesn't block, so I don't know if he can buy himself another turn here and keep setting up. He's got this Deja Vu potion. He's got that Eye of Ophidia in his hand. He's still got the lens. He could do a lot of opting here. He could do a lot of setting up of his turn. How many blues does he have in his hand? How many resources does he have? That's a big question. What's in the arsenal? I think this might be the last turn of the game.
Yeah, and I see Alexander with a pen in hand. That tells me he just took that damage. What he's trying to do here, he's making Jacob make one more attack. That takes another card out of hand, reduces the Arcane barrier. He's saying you got to do something else here, but it looks like Jacob just going to go ahead and move to the end of turn, and that could signal either go time for Alexander, or you could do another half turn here because you know you're going to get to draw again. So,
oh, Jacob's talking about he could have possibly activated his quill hands here and forced lethal. He's pointing at it. I mean, that would take down. I mean, you're so set in your mind, right? You're like, I need my Arcane barrier.
Yeah, but Jacob's absolutely right. I could see offering lethal there because if you give Alexander another turn beyond this, I hate to use just stark statements when I'm casting. I think you're dead, though, if you give Alexander another turn. Okay, we have the Rosetta Thorn 2 and 2, so this is going to force the action, presumably.
And there are 2 resource points floating here, so he can prevent 2 damage here, but if Alexander presents one of his good turns, it's well more than 22.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but 22 is not enough.
I think Alexander has a lot of options here. There are a lot of potential cards on the top of the deck that will ultimately deal lethal. There are a lot of redraws. Nothing is certain as Kano, and I expect we're going to see Alexander take his time with this turn. This is going to be, it's his Pro Tour life, quite frankly. This decision, this Kano chain, will determine who moves on to our semifinal.
Yep, this Arcane damage is on the stack, along with 2 physical as well, both of which are lethal. So I was going to say, Alexander has to worry about not only being able to block this, but also stop the Arcane damage if he doesn't go off this turn. That will not leave him with a lot of resources, Brian. I think that's what's, he's kind of in the pinch here. He's kind of in a squeeze. He's like, do I go for this because it's 2 different forms of damage? It's hard for me to stop both of them and do anything progressive on my turn, and then I'm just back in the same spot, except Jacob's going to have 4 full cards.
A lot of it's going to depend on what's revealed here for Alexander, and one of those cards is an Ether Wildfire. The other one's a Reverberate. So now it's about math. Can I find a way to kill Jacob with Arcane Barrier 2 available, 2 resources floating? That's critical. We talked about the effect of Shock Charmers on these Kano players, how that 2 damage prevention on an Aether Wildfire is such a game changer. It's going to be available here to Jacob the hard way. Going to have to use resources to do it. Looks like 1 card going to be left on top for Alexander. Let's see what the play is here.
Looks like it might be getting a Kano activation here.
Yeah, looks like we're going to pitch a blue.
All right,
going to go ahead and fire off that Aether Wildfire.
Jacob had the Ushka look. He's like, he knows that's the card that he needs to be super scared of. Look at that look on his face. He's like, am I dead or are you dead?
How about another Kano activation? This one, though, going to be backed up by Eye of Ophidia. So we're going to go ahead and get to opt 2 more times. Alexander has not cast that Aether Wildfire yet, so still has the option to go ahead, activate Crucible should he want to, use the Metacarpus nodes. All those plays are still on the table. Again, Math, figuring out. Your opponent is basically face up at this point. You know what they're going to do. You just have to find the kill, figure out how that Ether Wildfire combines with the rest of your hand to go ahead and present lethal. And with that Potion of Deja Vu sitting there, it's complicated. It's really hard to understand exactly how to set up this turn and find lethal and finish your opponent.
Yeah, this one's going to take a little bit of time. Alexander obviously taking his time, and rightfully so. You know, this is such a hard spot.
I think that's a zap that Alexander is looking at right now. Zap and maybe a Scalding Rain might be the other card he's debating between. So both of those do arcane damage. Zap particularly cheap, 0 to cast. But again, combine the pieces. Twist that Rubik's Cube. Figure out how these various sources of arcane damage are going to combine. And it looks like we're bottoming here. Time for the Kano activation. This is blank. Gaze the Ages. Okay. That works. What that's going to do, if it's the second spell cast, that'll come back to hand and create some more resources for Alexander, as well as creating another source of opt. So more decisions, more options. The chain gets more complicated as a Kano player. If you're sitting at home and you're saying, wow, I'd really like to pick up Kano at my next pro quest. This is the moment where you're getting a little intimidated. And you're saying, do I have this in me? Can I figure out these complicated hands? If you're Alexander Vore, you've done it all weekend long. You have found lethal in these spots over and over and over. Can you do it one more time when stakes are at the absolute highest?
Yeah, Gaze of the Ages a really, really good hit off the top of the deck here. Like you said, card's going to help him dig deeper into his deck, find the right ones, and then he'll go back to his hand, providing him with those much-needed resources. Really a perfect card for this deck. Does a little bit of everything for you in the fact that, you know, you're playing spells, you're opting, but also being a blue is such a big, big thing here. It looks like we're going to start off possibly with this Wildfire.
Yeah, pitching, I believe, a Scalding Rain, blue Scalding Rain, and that means it's time for the Ether Wildfire activation here.
And is this the one that you want to be using your resources of Arcane Barrier on?
100%. 100%. You cannot let Ether Wildfire, because that damage is multiplicative through the rest of your turns. Every single thing that Alexander does beyond this point will go ahead and get that bonus from Ether Wildfire. So I don't think there's any doubt here. This is where you have to spend those last 2 resources. And then at that point, you're just face up. You got to let it happen. And what we're seeing here, Ether Wildfire on the stack. In response, we're going to go ahead and cast that Gaze of Ages. That's going to allow Alexander to go ahead and put that blue resource back into hand. I bet it's time for Metacarpus Node to be deployed and maybe push a little bit more damage onto that Ether Wildfire.
Let's see, how does Jacob want to do this? So much to consider. I think this is one of the hardest parts and one of the biggest feather in the caps for the Kano players is not only is their deck really complicated so they have to be good at it, if you haven't play tested against this, if you haven't played with the Kano deck, it's hard to understand the full range of what it can do. A lot of the times when I'm playing against Kano, I ask my opponent, I'm like, hey, can you walk me through what's, tell me like I'm a 5-year-old. Walk me through this, right? Hold my hand as we go through this because I'm not sure what some of this stuff does when you start doing it in all the different orders. So make sure, if you're playing this deck at home, if you're learning this deck at home, you want to play this, you're going to have to be really, really verbal with what you're doing. Make sure that you're telling everybody what's going on. Very
Timing
deliberate.
Is everything. You have to manage your stack well. It's all so important. If you're Kano, it really rewards mastery on the Kano side.
Does look like we're still opting here. All right, now the Aether Wildfire. Here comes the resolution of Aether Wildfire. 2 Arcane Barrier expended by Jacobs. That will be 2 damage from our Aether Wildfire. That is going to be added to every source of arcane damage that Jacob takes for the rest of the turn. This is where it starts to get scary, Brian.
Yeah, and can Jacob find a way out of this? Looks like it's time for Aether Spindle, I believe. Blocking?
Oh, wait, is this it? Is this going to be it for the turn?
Blocking, question mark? We didn't have lethal. We had to reset. We had to just do some damage there. And if you're Jacob, what a sigh of relief you must be putting forth.
Yeah, a lot of resources expended from Alexander there. You have to feel great about making out the turn. You're going up into your Tunic 3.
Tannen, I can't believe we're coming out of this turn without a winner. I did not see a block coming there.
Here comes Arcanic. Here comes Sonata. Oh, Alexander might respond to this.
Yeah, there's got to be some fear of just, arcane damage headed your way. There is still Arcane Barrier available on that wizard set, Arcane Barrier 2. So you have responses, but Tenon, I'm kind of flabbergasted over here. I did not expect a block on that turn. I thought for sure that was the moment where Alexander had to go for it. And what that tells me is that the top of the deck may not have been particularly kind there. I was near certain we were going to see a winner on that turn.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very, very surprised to be seeing another main phase from Jacob here, another combat chain getting open. Look, here we go.
Yeah.
I think this is it.
It's time for Kano activations again, and we're just going to go ahead and line those up. 2 Kano activations on the stack. Potion of Deja Vu going to be used in response.
So these 3 are going to get rearranged at the top of the deck. Are these the last 3 cards that Alexander Vore will go through in the tournament? We're about to find out.
All right. I know I said it last time. This has got to be it.
This has got to be it,
There's no way we play another turn after this. Starting with a Tome of Aetherwind and a Tome of Feyendel, and that means Alexander's hand is going to be completely juiced on this turn. Going to go ahead, either redraw or amplify some arcane damage is Alexander Vore here.
Yeah, he's going to consult the stack of cards that he's already been through this game. What are my options? Hey, what am I most likely to draw here? How many Aether Wildfires do I have left? How many of this do I have left? How many of that?
We are going to draw 2 cards here. That's step 1.
So we get another pitch here.
And how about drawing 2 more?
Gonna draw 2 more, gain a little bit of life.
No life gain in this case.
Sorry.
It has to be played from Arsenal for life.
No,
gain.
you're correct.
So just 2 fresh cards for Alexander.
Got a little ahead of myself there.
That's okay. I understand. Trust me, Alexander wishes he was gaining life. That would feel a lot better.
Just so excited.
It looks like a couple of energy potions drawn by Alexander. That should go ahead and allow him to get some more Kano activations. Of course, those are blues. Do we have the damage sources, though?
Still got 2 resources floating here as well. We could see a couple of blind activations of Kano possibly this turn. And if you're down to blind activating Kano, Jacob's got to be feeling a little bit better about it, and Alexander's got to be sweating just a little bit.
Yeah, we used up that talismanic lens on the last turn, and, the setup is not quite as good here. That's why I was so convinced that Alexander was ready to go for it. All the pieces being used told me that Alexander thought it would be very possible to cobble together lethal. Not only possible, I would say likely in Alexander's position. Ultimately, though, the pieces just were not there, and now we're resetting, reformulating our plan, and figuring out exactly what we're going to do in the face of this Sonata Arcanix, which is going to push some arcane damage, potentially.
Let's let the master work. Let's see what Alexander's got here. Does look like a pitch for 3.
Yeah, energy potion going to go ahead, activate Kano.
He's already been through multiple Deja Vu and energy potions, which is good for him as well. That means there's less items left in his deck for him to whiff on Kano as well.
Absolutely. Fewer bricks.
That's a big deal.
He's played Tome of Feyendel, so a Sonic Boom unlikely to whiff. Getting all this stuff out of your deck really, really matters.
Yeah, a brick here would actually probably just be immediately death.
I would say so. I would say so. And based on how long Alexander has looked at this card, I don't think he's in love.
By the way, speaking of how long it's taking, this is the worst part about playing against Kano, is you just have to sit on your hands and be like, am I dead?
Yeah.
Let me know, am I dead? And you just have to sit there and be like, okay, what are you doing over there? You got 3 or 4 different piles of cards. Some are playable, some are not. You got an arsenal. You've got Kano revealed cards. You got cards in your hand. You got cards in your pitch stack. What's going on? Let me know.
Look at this almost.
You can see Jacob kind of just taking a deep breath. He's just resigned. He's like,
on Alex's face, it's an almost plaintive look, and I don't think he banished the card, Tannen.
He did not. So it looks like Sonata Arcanix is going to resolve here.
It is going to whiff.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's going to leave some resources for Alexander. Tannen, if he didn't banish a card, does he just have to block everything here? Is that where we are?
I think we might be. I think we're going to find out. I think the first attack that happens here this turn will tell us exactly how the rest of this turn is going to go on. It looks like here's our first one.
Here's Scar for a Scar, and this does not have go again. Jacob had a higher life total. What it does have is 7 big damage headed the way of Alexander. And good Lord, are we going to play another turn after this? Is that possible?
I don't know. Because here's the thing, if we play another turn after this, Alexander won't be playing on his own turn because all the cards in his hand are probably going to be gone.
This has been a fascinating game, so different.
Yep,
and here's a full block.
Full block. Do you have anything? I was going to say, there's a
lightning press.
That's going to be it. Lightning press for the win. Jacob Shaker, our 8th seed, is going to upset the #1 player coming into this top 8. Alexander Vore's tournament is over. The Kano dream is half dead in this top 8. Unbelievable stuff. That lightning press. Can you imagine sitting through that turn with the lightning press in your hand, just waiting that entire time? He's like, if he blocks, he dies.
It is not often that I am left speechless. What a start to our Pro Tour top 8 here.